Chapter 20. January is generally the coldest month of the year in the Siskiyous. Sometimes, as in December, we get a few inches of snow down near the river. When that happens, we know there has been a deep snowfall higher in the mountains. Only a few hundred feet in elevation will make a difference between a scattering of flakes that soon melt and 6 inches to a foot of dry snow at the diggings. At the cabin, the temperature during the night often fell 10 or 15 degrees below freezing, but generally the middle of the day was not really cold, just pleasantly crisp. One morning I woke to find that a light powdering of snow had fallen during the night. After breakfast, I thought I would step out into my front yard and see what the world looked like. The thin film of icy crystals on the doorstep was my undoing. My foot slipped. I pitched forward for several running steps, tried frantically to regain my balance. I succeeded, but in the effort I did something to the same leg I had hurt by tripping over a wire nearly 9 months before. Limping into the cabin, I sat down on my creaky rocking chair, propped my foot up on the bed, and felt thoroughly sorry for myself. I had gone up and down mountain trails. I had climbed over boulders. I had waded through snow, mud, and slush, and with no damage to myself whatever. Then, on my own doorstep, Vicky laid her head on my lap and whined her sympathy. This brought me out of my doldrums. I gently scratched her ears. "Never mind, Vicky," I said. "Remember, I have young legs, so I'll get over this in a jiffy." Brave words, but things didn't work out that way. In a few hours, I could scarcely hobble around the cabin. When the boys came down the front from the mine and found out what had happened, they were deeply concerned. "I'll lay off work tomorrow and take you to the doctor at Wairika," dear sir stated firmly. "Thanks a lot," I said, "but that won't be necessary. It's probably nothing more than a strained muscle. My ankle isn't even swollen, see?" I stretched them both out for comparison. That's all right, isn't it?" agreed Up and Up. "You've got a real nice ankles, dear madam, but just the same, there's one of 'em you can't walk on very good. Better let us take you to Wairika." "Couldn't think of it," I said airily. "You boys are working hard at the mine now. One of you gone and the other wouldn't get much gravel washed. Takes two on that job. On one end of the shovel, the other to hold the little giant. A few days from now, this leg will be good as new." Reluctantly, they finally gave in. But I continued to limp, and there was more pain than I let the boys know about. Dear Sir brought me a stout oaken cane that he had made from a fairly straight branch, with a knob whittled smooth to fit my hand. I used it to get around the cabin and yard, and it did help, but I hated it. The thought of becoming a cane addict filled me with gloom. Somehow, a cane suggests a feeble old age that is going to get worse as time passes. Now, I may be old, I thought, but I am not feeble, so being forced to use a cane was a real cross. Was this going to be permanent? I asked myself as day after day went by and my legs showing no improvement. If so, I would have to give up my adventure of living in the Klamath Forest. I couldn't see myself as a quitter and had no notion of letting this happen. But what was I to do? The question followed me around all day and would not let me sleep nights. A week, then 10 days went by. Something had to be done, but what? I was determined not to ask the boys to stop work on their claims and take me to a doctor at Wairika. Finally, I had an inspiration. The solution of the problem was so simple that I berated myself for not having thought of it before. I would go with Tom in the mail truck to the hospital on the Indian reservation at Hoopa, see the doctor there, then come home with Tom on his return trip the same day. When the boys stopped in on their way from work that evening, I told them my plan. They agreed that it was a good one. Next morning, I hobbled down to the mailbox a few minutes before 7 o'clock, bundled up in a warm sweater under my wooliest coat, and carrying my cane. I really needed it to get down my trail to the road. Right on time, Tom's light truck rounded the curve. I hailed him and he stopped. "How come?" he asked, looking at my cane as he helped me into the seat. "It's an ornament I'm wearing to Hoopa." "Ornament nothing. You're not old enough for a cane." No wonder I liked Tom. When we arrived at Hoopa, Tom drove me to the hospital and helped me out. You can pick me up at the post office on your way back this afternoon, I said. Tom nodded and drove away. I went up the path and into the doctor's office. He was an anemic elderly gentleman who gazed at me through huge black-bowed bifocals and diagnosed my case coldly and brutally. Old age, he said. He didn't ask me any questions about occupation, previous illnesses, or present symptoms. He didn't feel my pulse, take my temperature, or even look at my teeth. I am sure he saw me through the window of his office as I limped up the walk, and a small, stooped, overweight, white-haired woman, a wholly uninteresting figure. He had me placed before I entered the door of the hospital, had mentally tabulated everything from the number of the mimeograph diet sheet to the prescription he intended to give me. He handed me what appeared to be a diet sheet. I haven't read it yet. And a prescription. I haven't had it filled yet, for some kind of vitamins. He outlined a program for every hour of the 24 to 12 hours in bed, sleeping, 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, resting in a relaxed position, 2 15-minute periods of mild exercise. I interrupted him, called his attention to my 2 young legs, one in perfect condition, the other slightly damaged. He wasn't listening or even looking. A cane, he said. You will find it useful. I already have a cane, doctor, and I don't like canes. Perhaps a crutch, a new one, please, all bright and shiny. Resignedly, he rose and brought me one. I paid him and walked out, leaving the oak cane leaning against my chair. The crutch worked very well. Nothing had been done for my leg, but I felt pleased with myself anyway. A crutch, especially a new, cheap one, suggests a merely temporary ailment, like a sprained ankle or a broken leg. It intimates that someday soon you'll set the crutch behind a door and walk out bravely and steadily, forgetting all about it. Not at all like a cane. I had lunch at the little restaurant where I had eaten the day I was on my way to the cabin. The pretty hoopoe waitress remembered me, greeted me cheerfully. It was all very warm and friendly. She asked me to wait there where I could be comfortable until Tom came. In the course of time, he drove up to the post office and a little later came walking into the restaurant. Thought I'd find you here, he said. It's a cold today, even in the sun. Glad to see you've got a crutch. Lots better than a cane. What did the doctor say? Very little, I said truthfully. So I guess there's nothing much the matter with me. He nodded, told the waitress what he wanted for lunch, ate it, and we rose to go. I followed him to the mail truck, and he settled me and my crutch in the cab, and off we went, following the clear and lovely Trinity River until it flowed into the Klamath at Wychpek. After that, the road wound along by the rolling jade waters of the Klamath. I like to ride with Tom. I talk and talk. He listens and listens. Discreet, non-committal, knows everything about everybody, and never tells what he shouldn't. We rode along in the rapidly chilling afternoon until we came to the Orleans, a bright, clean little village set among green pines and fir trees, surrounded by towering mountains. There we picked up another passenger. I caught only a glimpse of him as 2 men half carried, half dragged him off the store porch, heaved him into the open bed of the truck, and jammed an old felt hat down on his head. Then they put a glass gallon jug and flour sack, apparently filled with an assortment of groceries, in beside him. When Tom had driven away, I asked him about the passenger. Don't you think he must be terribly uncomfortable back there? Oh, he doesn't mind. That's where he always rides. But he's sick. He's an old drunk, and I'm getting mighty tired of hauling him back to his cabin. And for nothing. He never remembers to pay me. I was horrified. Do you mean to say this happens all the time? Every month, regular as clockwork, he comes down to Orleans, cashes his pension check, gets a few groceries and a gallon of wine, then he sits in the saloon drinking beer until he's dead drunk. The barkeep has to drag him out and get somebody to help load him onto me to deliver. I'm getting plenty tired of it. Where does he live, Tom? Up here a ways. A few miles this side of Somasbar. I'll put him off at the side of the road and leave him there. When he sobers up enough, he can make his way down to his cabin. As we rolled along over the next few miles, I thought scornfully now and then of the old sot in the back of the truck. After a while, Tom drew up at the side of the road, went around to the back, dragged the drunk man out and carried him over to a pine tree. Coming back, he got the jug and flour sack, put them down by the man's side. Tom stood looking at the old fellow for a moment, as if uncertain what to do next. Then, leaning down, he dragged the unconscious man to a sitting position, braced his back against the tree. The old man's head lolled to one side and his battered hat fell off. I got my first full view of his face. The skin was like white parchment stretched over bones, eyes wide open but unseeing like the eyes of a blind man. From his loose, shabby coat sleeves to two small bony hands protruded, the hands of a man who had never done hard labor, frail, delicate, and appealing. My heart filled with pity for this human derelict. The sun was behind the mountain now. The air felt definitely colder. Tom got in the car, but he didn't touch the starter. I looked at him inquiringly. I'm thinking, what if a bear or a cougar comes across the old coot tonight, he said. I shouldn't leave him like this, but I can't very well take him with me. Didn't you say he had a cabin around here? Yes, down there in the brush somewhere. It's too far for me to carry him, and there isn't much more than a cow trail for a road. It would be dangerous to drive the truck down it. Let me take a look. I grabbed my crutch, climbed out, and went over to the brink of the slope that ended at the river several hundred feet below. The road's not too bad. I believe we can make it, I called. Tom took my word for it. He crawled out of the cab, picked the old man up, got him back in the truck, put the jug and sack of groceries in beside him. He carefully edged the truck onto the steep, deeply rutted road, while I watched anxiously, the rough jolting partially rousing the old man. He pulled himself to his knees by clutching the tailgate with his fragile, bony fingers and tried to clamber out. I hurriedly limped after the slowly moving truck and slapped his hands smartly with my leather gloves. He let go and dropped back into the bed of the truck. Again he pulled himself up, and again I slapped his hands until he let go and fell back. We kept this up all the while. Tom bumped and lurched over rock and rain-washed gashes in the roadway. I must have hurt the old man's hands, but it seemed I had to do it. All the time, his eyes looked at me with an expression of abject terror. No mere woman could possibly be doing this to him. Probably, in his drunken fancy, I was an evil witch, a blood-sucking vampire, pursuing him with intent to do him ever greater harm. When Tom stopped before a tumble-down cabin and came around the truck to help him, the old man threw his arms around Tom's neck and began to sob like a child. Tom picked him up gently, trying to soothe his hysterical fright, and carried him into the stoutly fenced yard as I held the wire gate open. A faithful dog waited on the porch. He seemed to understand his master's condition, making no protest when Tom laid the old man down and covered him with several sacks that evidently were the dog's bed. He immediately sank once more into a stupor. Tom began to search for a key so that he could take the old fellow inside. He looked under the step, over the window, kicked a box aside. No key. He started to go through the man's pants pockets, but at the first touch, bony fingers grasped Tom's in a vice-like grip. Some heel must have robbed him, Tom stood, thinking for a moment. There's nothing more I could do, he said finally, but leave him here on the porch with his dog to guard him. The fence will protect him from wild animals. Tom put his jug and groceries beside the sleeping figure. We climbed into the truck and drove back up the steep, rough trail to the road. Tom spoke wonderingly of the terror he had seen in the old man's eyes when he lifted him out of the truck. I explained the tactics I had used to keep him from jumping out. He's not used to women, Tom said. You may have scared him so he'll stay sober after this. I have no such hope, Tom. It's going to get awfully cold on that porch before morning. Yeah, his face set in a worried frown.